Hello and welcome. Today is Monday, July 7th, 2025, and we are here for our weekly weather and wellness update. The main thing going on this week continues to be storms and potentials for flooding, and there is also a full moon on Thursday, the 10th. Those are just some weather-related things that you might want to be especially aware of related to your health and wellness. Of course, the big news this week really is the flooding, catastrophic flooding that has been going on all around the world. In particular, there's been a great deal of attention on the flooding in Texas, which happened on the 4th of July in the Guadalupe River. And of course, dozens of lives were lost, including children. And I think we can all really feel that in our hearts and certainly our hearts and go out to that whole community as they continue in the search efforts and as they start to process what has happened. These floods came on very suddenly during the night. Also, in other areas in Italy and France and the border in the Alps, there were sudden floods and mudslides last week, causing devastation to a lot of communities. And I know there were also flash floods in China in the last few days, and they continue to be on a red alert in China for flooding. There's going to be more. There's more potential for flooding and storms escalating in the US, Central Plains and the Great Lakes region, also in a whole bunch of areas in Central Europe. So the center of the continents, these storms are kind of churning around a lot right now. We did have a storm come through the UK this weekend, and the pressure did drop. And I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it. And we're going to talk about just some basics that how to manage all this stuff that's actually going on right now. And now we're going on to a some high pressure coming in. So let's have a little quick look, and then I'm not gonna go too long today, but whoops. Let's go ahead and share the screen. There you go. This is right on the New York Times page. And as you can see, here's the flooding in Texas. And there's more, like all these front page stories are actually related to weather. There's a tropical depression, Chantal, over in North Carolina. So they've been also having flooding. And so, yeah, that's all about the flooding. Here is a quick video. I'm going to play that really quick. This is what's happening in France. So just a short video. This is in the Alps, and that is just what's going on there. And then here is just also flash floods coming in across China. So it is real. We are experiencing flooding all around the world right now. And let's just go back to here's our basics. So general biosensitivity to the weather is at a 3. And actually, if we do a quick look at Munich, because they are in southern Germany, they're going to be having some storms. We go to the biometeorology here. So they have a 4, so they're going to have a atmospheric pressure dropping because they're having storms coming through. So if you're in one of those areas where there's a lot of storms, you might want to particularly look at your pressure and how fast it's dropping because even when the pressure drops, it can be the speed the pressure drops. And sometimes these systems can expand really fast and the pressure can just drop. And it can really just be like sucking all the air out of a room. And it can feel quite intense. Here is the barometric pressure for London. I just like to stay consistent at what data points that we're looking at. Here's this low pressure that we had over the weekend. It just went way down. And if you remember last week, we looked ahead and I said, okay, if you like to look ahead next weekend, we can see this already coming. So now if we're looking ahead for the next 7 days, now the pressure's increasing. Here we are at Monday. We're going to have a nice little time looks like from tomorrow till, let's see, Friday, Saturday, and it's going to even stay pretty steady for all the next week, and that would be here in London. So again, go and look at the barometric pressure fluctuations because that will give you a little bit of a heads up on any sensitivity that might be coming up suddenly to that. And so I think that's all we're going to do for the share today. I am not a weather person, but I do like to study how the weather interacts with our health. And I certainly found different weather patterns that influence my health, influence others around me's health. And I would say I first noticed this when I was teaching over 30 years ago and teaching primary school, and the full moon would happen, and that would just affect everybody's mood, especially the children. The windy days, just I think those are the two that really came up that are really obvious that you can notice. It makes everybody a little bit unsettled, a little bit off kilter, if you want to say. So, as I became a health coach and studied a little more and more about that, it turns out there's all kinds of things, and there's a whole field of biometeorology that can affect our health. And it can be such things from the sun, from the moon, from the atmospheric regulations and what's going on, especially maybe some solar winds are coming, and that gets into geomagnetic kind of stuff. So there's so many different things that I'm still learning about it, and they're all affecting our bodies. And I have this, for ex for example, here's a quote from a book, and I'm not going to unpack the specifics of this, but UV radiation affects at least 8 body functions, including protein, metabolism, and GI function. So, just to name a few, that's not even getting into what it's doing to our skin and all of our cells. And it's also giving us vitamin D. So, we have a whole bunch to learn about how the weather is interacting with our biology and our physical selves. And that being said, we have a full moon this week on Thursday. So, our cells are going to carry more water during that time. So if you notice that happening, just know that it could be from the full moon. You might feel a little heavier, a little more bloated. I'm not sure about insulin sensitivity in terms of the full moon, but I do know that like if you are feeling like the heaviness from the water, which is definitely a noted thing, some cinnamon tea is a really nice thing to have, or ginger tea. Um, Generally, like a light diuretic. I wouldn't go for too much diuretic because during the summer, we also want to make sure we're not getting depleted. But just to manage the water in your system. Of course, insomnia can come up during the full moon. So really, you might want to pay attention to some of your sleep hygiene and your sleep habits. And I did a video on that a few weeks ago, I think, probably on the last full moon. But maybe make sure you have a good eye mask. Take a little extra time to turn away from screens with the full moon because it's already going to be a little bit extra stimulating, especially if you're getting some of that light into your bedroom. Maybe a little extra magnesium or something like that as you're getting ready for bed. So that would be because of the full moon. But what I really want to talk about today is the a little bit about body, mind, and spirit. And I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Sheila O'Connor. I'm a health coach and educator. And on this channel, I look at how the weather interacts with our wellness of body, mind, and spirit, and then discuss different diet and lifestyle things to kind of navigate through these dynamic changes. And it's kind of interesting. I think it's interesting. I hope you are finding it a little bit more interesting as well. So, like I said, like we see these news stories in other places, and it really it can really affect us because, you know. there are human beings in all these places in the world being affected by these different weather situations. And, you know, it's not a far stretch for us to imagine that that could happen to us. And actually, we might even feel something physically in our bodies, like how just some grief, some devastation, some compassion, empathy, all those things. So self-care is super important. I have started doing something. I kind of was joking to my family yesterday. I said, yeah, it's self-care Sunday. So I kind of only do things as needed on Sunday. I allow myself complete permission to be as lazy as I need to be, but it's lazy is just a label. It's actually um, it's my self-care. I'm not worrying about a to-do list, but I'm just making sure that I am taken care of, and I feel really good. And one of the things I like to take a bath, like to burn some incense, do a meditation, do some journaling. Sometimes I'll talk to a friend that I don't get to talk to very often. So the message I think right now is all this calamitous stuff going on around the world, we're watching it. We're all connected to it, regardless of if it's happening in our own communities or not. We're still, each one of us, I think, is around the whole world is still feeling it. So there is more potential for storms and flooding around the world this week. There's heat waves are continuing and there's fires in other places. So the message this week, friends, is self-care. Slow down a little bit. Be sure to enjoy your summer. One of my themes this year has been simplicity, and I think this is a great time to practice simplicity. Simplicity in what we eat real natural foods without a lot of artificial ingredients. That's going to be much more nourishing to the body, to the mind, and the spirits. I wish you a wonderful week, enjoying your summer wherever you are, and I'll be back next Monday with a weather and wellness week ahead for next week on Monday, and I will see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.